Walls separate racial groups within cities, and a madman dictator seeks global domination. 14s, Rose, Marcos, Harriet, and Jason must unite their unique skills to fight for a free future. From secret prison camps to the underground resistance, they face daunting challenges and powerful foes. Stay tuned for more on the Writers' Corner live show as we delve into the gripping world of Divided with its creator, CeCe Robinson. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Imagine a world where the lines of reality blur with the fantastical. Embark on journeys from humble beginnings to the pinnacles of literary greatness. On the Writers' Corner, we delve into the lives of unique wordsmiths, known for their compelling storytelling. They are artisans who craft fantastical realms, etched in our memory long after the final page is turned. Every tale begins with a single word, a single idea. Authors create sensations that keep you on the edge of your seat. Witness how they transform setbacks into stepping stones, use refusals to spark growth, and turn rejections into catalysts for new inspiration. Witness the diversity in writing as it gives birth to a vast array of genres, from drama to mystery to children's stories, fantasy, and reality. Join us as we uncover sources of inspiration and the magic that defines the author's craft. Find out how authors breathe life into their characters and meticulously craft narratives and plots that captivate readers. Get a sneak peek into upcoming works and join us as we celebrate literary greatness only on the Writers' Corner. We don't just celebrate best-selling Amazon and New York Times authors, but also indie authors. Join us on the journey from the birth of a tale to the creation of a masterpiece, only on the Writers' Corner live show. Stay tuned.
If you're just joining us, then a hearty warm welcome to the Writers' Corner live show. And if you're not yet following us on our social media channels, please go ahead and do that. And that way you'll get notified the next time we go live with the Writers' Corner live show. In today's episode, we talk to CeCe Robinson. Our live stream is brought to you by Creative Edge, StreamYard, and BeLive Media. So a warm welcome to you, all our listeners from around the world. But before we introduce our amazing guest, CeCe Robinson, let me first say hello to my friend and co-host, Mary Elizabeth Jackson. Mary is a 5-time #1 best-selling Amazon author and a certified special needs and disability advocate. And she's dedicated her life to empowering underrepresented voices through her writing and advocacy. She's also a speaker, educator, ghostwriter, and songwriter. Mary, how are you today, my friend?
I'm doing well, and we are excited to continue celebrating our 6 years and all the amazing authors that we get to have on today. We've never had CeCe on, so this is a joy to have her on today.
Absolutely. And she's an amazing person.
I know.
Her bio so much under her belt.
I know, right? I'm like, this is awesome. Yes, so we're excited that we get to meet her for the first time and get to share her with our audience. It's a real privilege.
Absolutely. So for you out there who's not yet met CeCe, she's a seasoned medical doctor, a spiritual leader, and an author with over 2 decades experience in cross-cultural settings. And she tells us when she's not saving lives or guiding her congregation, she immerses herself in writing dystopian adventures.
Fun.
Her debut series, Divided, showcases her passion for survival stories and her dedication to creating characters who triumph against impossible odds. Don't we all need that, Mary?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's welcome her to join us, shall we?
Yes. Hello.
Hi, ladies.
Welcome.
We're so excited you're here. We're going to dive right in so we don't waste any time at all. So,
absolutely. I love that.
Yeah. Okay, so we want to know, right off the bat how you have your experiences in post-Civil War nations influenced your dystopian settings in your book. So we're just going to dive right in, like I said.
Oh, yes, it absolutely influenced my dystopian settings. I think it added a layer of richness to world building, to see people who had to struggle after war to rebuild their lives, and what that might look like were that to happen in America, my own nation, and knowing that, when power goes out, when there's no doctors around, when the services that we all depend on with the government are gone, what really happens, and how do people rebuild their lives in a way that they can live day to day? And so, yeah, a lot of our work was in post-Civil War situations, as you mentioned, and I saw people doing things that were impossible. We would see maybe from the West to go, how are they even surviving? And they did. They made it happen, and they made it work, and they did what they had to do day in and day out. And so when I crafted The World of Divided, I brought that perspective in, but at the same time knowing that it was not necessarily a free society that I was creating. It was, in fact, quite the opposite. I was creating a world that was ruled by a dictator who controlled everything with an iron fist, and he separated everyone's, and partially it was for our own good, whatever. But really it was so he could control us. And what would that look like growing up under a oppressive regime like that, separated from people that you didn't look like? And how could you survive, and what would you do to survive in that? And that sets the stage for Divided.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. A grand stage indeed. Can you share a moment from your medical career that felt like it could have been a scene in one of your novels?
Oh, which one to choose? So I know you're in Africa, Bridgetti, and we did something maybe that was not the smartest thing in the world to do. We went from Sierra Leone to Liberia, but instead of like getting on a plane and flying and doing, it would have taken 2 or 3 stops to get one country over. We drove. And we drove through a post-Civil War nation where the roads were bombed out. Some of the potholes were as big as Volkswagens at the time, and most of the roads were dirt. And so we spent most of the time in the bush, actually, not on the road. And then when we finally got to the land border crossing, they looked at me. I mean, obviously, I don't belong, right? Which one is not like the other in this one? And they're like, why are you doing this? And I had a people to go see, and I had to get there, and we were starting a church in a pretty small, faraway city in Liberia, and we had to travel through a nation that had just ended their own civil war. Charles Taylor had been arrested and his forces disbanded, and we were driving through his stronghold. And I think they missed a few people, but we got stopped at a checkpoint, and I thought, okay, this might be the end of it. But we made it and got to the other side and made it to go and speak to people there. And we did a couple of clinic times. And so it was a blessing, and there, it was pretty crazy at first. I thought, okay, this is out of a movie, but we survived, and it gave us hope that, okay, we can do this.
That show was pretty wild. Pretty wild.
Wow, that's an amazing adventure, and thank goodness that you did, survive.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. Well, what kind of challenges, you've gone, like you said, one is not like the other. So you've transitioned in your life with your professions. You've gone from doctor to author. How did you overcome that transition? Because that is a big transition.
I think I never stopped being a writer, and there's maybe a difference between being, writing and then trying to actually get published and moving into the public space as an author. But I wrote stories growing up, and I've just never really stopped. I'm always that type of person that if I go and see a large group of people, my brain is making up stories. What's their life like? I've been a very curious person about other people all my life. And I love hearing people's stories, and I love then telling people stories. And so this just feels like an extension of that. It's not a huge pivot. Maybe it might be to some people. International medicine and doing work overseas is very difficult, and it's a lot of hard work, especially if you have a family like I do. And so at some point there just needed to be an adjustment. And so I've gone into this segment of having my writing be the main thing.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Now, your characters, or how do your characters reflect the diverse and multi-ethnic communities that you've worked with? 'Cause having worked in so many different countries, that sure is interesting.
Yes, I love getting the opportunity to craft characters that are different from me. And that took a lot of work. I had to sit down and interviewed many people from other ethnicities to hear their stories. You know, I like hearing people's stories. So hearing their stories, asking a lot of questions, learning about what their families are like, what their culture is like, and learning how to see the world from a different perspective. And that's not easy to do. You have to really identify your own biases and your own tendencies to assume, and then destroy those. And after that, then gain perspective from someone else. And so it took a lot of time to craft authentic characters. And I would write scenes and I would send them off to my friends who were part of that ethnic group. And I'd say, what do you think? And like, well, this doesn't ring true, or that's perfect. Then, so you had to make adjustments and make sure the characterizations were spot on and authentic, that they would feel like someone from that ethnicity. And that took some time.
I like that you did that.
Yeah. That did take some time, I'm sure. And that is, it's great that you had that to refer back to and to get that validation for what you were doing with your characters. Because the more real they are, the more people want to read the book, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what was the inspiration behind your 4 main characters in Divided? And how did you develop their unique, skills and backgrounds and all that fun stuff that's, I think, is fun?
The inspiration for the series as a whole came from a dream. And so I actually met my characters in a dream. And I know that might sound like woo-woo or crazy to people, but I did. I met my characters in a dream, and they were in a predicament. They were locked behind walls, and they needed to see freedom. And so as I began to really understand who these people were that I met in my dream, and then they get fleshed out, I asked questions about, okay, what type of jobs would be available in a oppressive regime like this? What types of opportunities would be available to someone just graduating high school? All my characters are 18, maybe 19 at the tops, and they needed to have careers that made sense, not only in their world, but then we could relate to in our world. And so we have Marcos, who is the star of book 1. You see scenes from all 4 perspectives, but Marcos is definitely the one who moves the plot. And his job, his extracurricular activities, his interest in boxing needed to fit his personality. And so you had to make sure that, okay, these things make sense as a sum total of a person. He's trying to avoid his father. His father wants him to do something he absolutely does not want to do. And we understand, like many of us have been there as kids, maybe even, or as teenagers now, like maybe your parents want you to follow after them or do the same thing. Your dad's a doctor, you need to be a doctor. Your mom's a lawyer, you need to be a lawyer, whatever that may be, but you have your own dreams. And so Marcos had his own dreams, and he needed to be the one to express those and to try to achieve those. And then, of course, I threw a few things in his way. So it's always fun. I can't let my characters have it too easy.
Right. Well, most people don't have it that easy in life, right?
Nope.
Yeah, I know.
Cece, can you tell us about a real life adventure or experience that you think directly inspired a plot point or a scene in Divided?
So I think about those times when I've been mentored or had to learn from someone else. And, in medicine, we have this saying, see one, and then we watch it, and then we do it together, and then you do it and I watch. So it's a mentorship process. And I think about, even learning how to start IVs. We watched someone do it, and I watched a pro VA nurse do this, and she was amazing. It was so fast. I was like, wait a minute, could you do that again? I missed that. And then I did it, and it was fumbling and not that great. But we made it work. And, she was mentoring me while I did it. And then I did it on my own, and she watched. And so it's a principle in medicine that then I took into the book. And one of my favorite scenes, Marcos, who's this champion boxer, he's now in a secret labor camp. And to his horror, his mentor asks him to teach a 16-year-old girl how to fight. At first, when Moses asked Marcos to do this, Marcos is like, yeah, I'm going to train a young guy. This could be awesome. And it's a girl. And he's like, oh, no. And Marcos is not so comfortable around women. He's like not very comfortable, like many teenage boys, maybe. And so he's going in there, and he has to teach Caroline how to defend herself. And then, then they'll move into attacks. But so they're working on things, and he gets over his own embarrassment at the whole thing by realizing that if he teaches her how to do this, it will give her a skill she can have then for the rest of her life. And so he becomes this like mentor in this moment. And I love that. That's one of my favorite scenes in the book. It's not this big, exciting thing, but it's just this simple mentorship.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. And there's so much that comes from it, that being a mentor that you never even imagined. You don't see it. You can't see it, and so I think it's so good for characters like that, even people in real life, to go through something that I don't want to say forced, but in a way kind of pushed to do something they don't want to do, because what they learn from it and grow is in even our own children, right? And I love our next question for you, because I think it's really important for all the women and men out there, everyone listening or watching, about balancing roles, because there's so many of us who try to do that. And, how do you balance your role as a wife, a mom, religious leader, and director of finance, and then still find time to write? Because I know for myself, it's like every moment I can squeeze. I've written in car writer lines at rehearsals or practices or games or doctor's appointments. So how do you do it? And we're going to take notes.
Sometimes I do it really well, and other times I don't do it really well. So I just need to be honest about that. My children are pretty much almost grown. My youngest just turned 18 and graduated high school. So that definitely helps. The demands on my time are not the same as they were when they were little, when the kids were little. But yeah, it's a struggle, and I keep copious notes everywhere. I'm constantly writing things down. I have both a physical calendar and a virtual calendar, and I spend time every week kind of charting out what my week is going to be like. And I've had to learn that sometimes my own expectations of myself are too high. And, I may put out this whole to-do list, and in reality, I really can only get half of it done. So I just need to be more realistic with how long things take me and what I can accomplish. And then if I can't accomplish it, who else can help with other things so that I can accomplish the things that really need to get done. So it's a combination of maybe obsessive calendaring and to-do list, along with prioritization and some smart delegation.
Yeah, I like the delegation part.
And sometimes things fall.
Yeah, they do. And then you've got to just be okay with it, not spend time trying to beat yourself up about it, because life happens,
you can't do anything about it.
Exactly. Now, we live in a very messed up world, to put it bluntly.
Yes.
What message or themes do you hope that readers of Divided would take away from the series, given that we live in such a divided world?
One, I really my deepest hope for this series is that people will escape the confines of their comfort zone and venture out into people, meeting people, being in community with people, day-to-day living with people who don't think like them, don't look like them, maybe don't have the same background as them. And that's not easy. I recognize that. I've been a pastor in a multicultural setting for over 20 years now, and I've watched people struggle through that racial reconciliation and realizing that wow, the way I view the world isn't the only way to view the world, and other people think differently, and that takes humility, and it takes time. It takes time spent with other people. And so my hope is that we put down our phones, turn off the news, and go have dinner with someone who doesn't look like us, and ask a lot of questions and learn. And that's my main hope. Obviously, I hope the story is entertaining, and I hope people are inspired, especially the younger generation, Gen Z, and whatever we're calling this next generation, that they're inspired to live their lives in maybe a way differently than what their parents did.
Very good advice. And I'm drawing a blank on what the generation is called now, because we just had this conversation in my house, and even the language, like all the slang is so different, and some of it's like, well, I just roll my eyes, but my 20-year-old was talking to my 11-year-old about it, and she said, "Do you know what these words are?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, it means this and it means this." And she's like, "How do you, but it's funny. But we did have that conversation, but it's important for us to teach these generations coming up, and having young adults, like you have young adults, and Bridgetti has older young adults still, right? Because they're not, they're in their 30s, your sons.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they're still learning in this life. And it's so important for us to teach them these ways so that we can do better for our future, and to be, more accepting,
Yes.
right?
Cece, I've got a random question for you. So your pen name is Cece. How did you come up with that? Why?
The way the name that I go by, Christy, is spelled is very, people misspell it all the time. And so I decided just to make things easy on everybody. To be honest.
How do you spell it?
And Christy. So it's a little weird.
Okay, I see that. Right. Yeah, I get you. Yeah. Well, it's good. Do you have any?
And everybody in dystopian literature has a pen as they use initials. It's a thing in dystopian.
So anyone out there wanting to write dystopian and fantasy and things like that, what is your advice for them?
Read a lot. You need to read a lot to understand, one, what a good book looks like in this field. There are a lot of great books out there by many wonderful authors. And, if you need to study the classics for sure, but you also need to actually study and not just read as a reader, but read as a thinker, analyze what works in this book. What do you connect with as a reader? What do you not connect with as a reader? And then ask a lot of questions and find out, okay, is this book connecting with what age group? And what type of writing would I like to do? And what age group would that connect with? What is my niche? What is my area within sci-fi or fantasy? And it's so broad. The genre has exploded in the last couple decades, maybe 3 decades. And there are all sorts of genre blends going on too. And so there's a lot of room for innovation. There's a lot of room for creativity in sci-fi and fantasy. So it's just a matter of what are you going to write and how's that going to connect with people.
So speaking of age groups and that, what age group is Divided aimed at?
It's aimed at young adults. So that's technically, I think on Amazon, they say 12 ages, 12 years and up. But I know, like I read young adult literature. So I know that even people, they're old, read young adult literature. So the main ideal reader is going to be a teenager, maybe in their 20s. And then probably a secondary reader is our parents, their parents.
Awesome. Wonderful. We are so excited to have you. What is your next project? Real quick, can you share with us? Are you able to?
Yes. So I am already starting to write book 2, which is tentatively called Caged at this point. And it is going to be Rose's story. Rose gets to be the star. Our genius physicist gets herself in a little bit of a bind.
Okay. Well, we're going to have you back.
Get out of it. Yep.
Now, right?
Yep.
Very
2025.
Ooh, so exciting. So exciting. And it seems so far away, but it'll be here before you know it. And then you'll be having your launch. We'll have you back on. It'll seem like yesterday.
It will be. It will be here before we know it.
Right.
Well,
Absolutely.
thank you so much, Cece. It was amazing getting to know you a little bit better. And we definitely would love to, as Mary said, we'd definitely love to have you back and hear about the next book. Tell us very quickly, when is Divided due to be released?
It is due to be released on September 7th of this year, September 7th, 2024. And it will be wherever books are sold.
Right. And it'll be great because that's close to the holidays. And people do so much more buying at that time. But yes, you're getting to hear about this book way ahead of time, which is not something that we've done a lot of, but I'm really excited to be able to do that for you, to be able to be a part of this, your campaign pre-launch, which is, there's so much work that goes into it. And there's just so much you have to think about and things to line up. And we're really grateful to everybody that's watching today, Instagram, LinkedIn, all of our platforms. And, if you catch us on the replay, say hello.
Thanks very much, everyone. And Cece, it was great having you on our show. And we want to say thank you to our amazing audience for joining us today on the show. And we'll see you back next week on another episode of the Writer's Corner live show. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next week. Thank you for joining us on the Writer's Corner live show. 30 minutes of insightful author conversations with some of the biggest names in the industry, including award-winning authors and international indie sensations. Join us on the next episode of the Writer's Corner live show.